let's move on to the Fijian Drua. Significant ins, Harry.
Yep. So Masaki Ndonge is coming over from the Dragons over in Wales. He's played for them and then Brive over the last few years. Bit of a worry in terms of his lack of selection for the Dragons. I think there's about 3 other tight heads that seem to be favoured above him, but nonetheless coming over with a pretty big name. Amosi Takiri coming over as another loose head prop where they're a little bit thin from the Rebels as a 22-year-old, played for Fiji in the under-20s. You've then got a couple of players from the 7th circuit that I'm very excited about. Elia Kanakae-Vata, who is a back rower from the Fijian 7 side. He's 26 years old, so he's a little bit more mature, only cracked the 7 side in 2021, got a silver medal in the Com Games, and he also got that gold medal in the Rugby World Cup for the 7s in 2022 in South Africa as well. And just an awesome story as well, one I'm sure we'll hear the commentators talking about a lot through the year. I hope he doesn't mind it coming up, to be honest, because it is pretty sensitive. But his father and brother both died in a car accident in 2020, and he was apparently going to give up rugby. And essentially, he was obviously in a pretty low place, but his mum convinced him to continue. From there, he made the Fiji 7 side, won those competitions, and then is now playing in the 15 side for the Fijian Drua. And watching him play as well, he's big, he's fast, and he's a little bit like the mold of the white shark, Darren Alangi. So I can't wait to see him go around.
He's exciting for sure.
Do you guys want to take off the last 7s player there? Do you want to rattle him off?
Sure. Yosefo Masi. I'm not sure how I went with the name, but we'll see. Another 7s player, 24-year-old. Same thing, part of that 2020 Summer Olympics gold and Rugby World Cup in Cape Town. He signed for the Cowboys, but never got a run. So whilst he's kind of been with the 7 squad, he's still with the 7 squad, he won't join the 15s until what looks like May. So I don't know how much we'll see from him, but also very exciting.
They don't have a lot of other young centres as well. So I would think if Revovo or Voto go down, then I think he has a real opportunity if he is able to come into the side.
For sure. And Nels, the last significant in that did kind of join last year?
Hilesaya Ndroa Sesi. He was the winger from the Reds. We really wanted to see him get some more game time with them, but it's really good to see him come across. He played a couple games, I think 2 starts at the back end of last year for the Ndroa. But he's a very electric, exciting winger for them, and I think he'll get a lot of game time.
Yep, no, he's sick. All right, sweet. And look, some of the significant outs. Manasa Solo, big prop. He's headed over to France. He was he the guy? I think he's quite old. The elder statesman, Solo. Yeah. They brought in a replacement in Donge. Namani Nagusa. I mean, can't really be more of a significant out than the captain. So he's where's he departed to?
He's gone back to Ndronga in the Fijian comp, as far as I know.
Okay. And otherwise, a player that we were kind of we didn't really get to see enough of, but Napoleone Bolaka, who was really exciting kind of fullback or winger. We thought we'd see much more of him. He was part of that first Olympic gold 7s team. And then a player that I picked up in the initial draft, super excited to see, Anisi Ratave, who did absolutely light it up when he was on the field. I think the ratio of tries to minutes played would have been right up there in terms of Super Rugby last year, but he's headed off to Benetton. Kitione Ratu, I think he was a loose forward, wasn't he, Ratu?
No, he was an outside back. He's a winger. Played a little bit of fullback too.
Cool, excellent. Took notes on that.
They can all play anywhere, let's be honest.
Yeah. Look, I mean, do you want? Okay, let's see if you can get this name right. You've got one right so far. No, that's right.
The other one I wanted to point out was Alivaretti Vadakani. He missed all of last year with an ACL injury, and he's a very highly regarded player over in Fiji. And a shout out to the Pick and Drive boys. They did their interview with Mick Byrne to talk about the Ndrua earlier in the week. And Mick Byrne basically explained that the reason that he's not in the side at the moment is he actually ended up having a really bad lung infection last year, which means he couldn't fly to Australia to have his ACL surgery, to have a reconstruction. So he still hasn't been able to get to Australia to have his knee reconstructed. So they're actually basically just on a medical watch for him. That's why he's not in the squad. So he definitely won't be playing this year. But I guess our thoughts go out to him as an exciting young Fijian player who we really hope can get his knee right, and hopefully we see plenty from him in 2024.
Yeah, he was an exciting player. It's a bit of a bummer, really.
It is. But I mean, look, the whole Fijian team is full of exciting players.
They're still people, Kagi. They're people, mate. Their lives matter.
Mate, they're my favourite
They're not
players.
meat.
Okay.
All right, they're not just meat like you think.
All right, Nelson, thank you for that. Let's get on to the best starting 15 that we think the most likely starting 15.
Great image.
And you can follow along with us on the video. We've got a slide of the lineups, and we had one of the squad. But all right, up in the front row, we think Harriete Hetet in the loose head. Dolicoto in starting at hooker, who's exciting. Remember last year he played flanker a couple of times as well, which was very good. And Samuela Tawake is starting in tight head, we think. Will probably be the most likely, although like last year, expect a lot of rotation. And then in terms of the locks, we've got Nasila Silla was pretty much the mainstay last year, and certainly in the Fijian international squad as well. Been starting to make that jersey his own a little bit. And Tufiagalele, definitely. Yeah, tried my best with that. He's who we think is the most likely other starting lock, but again, expect some rotation amongst the squad. Nels, do you want to take us through the back row?
Yeah, they used quite a few locks there throughout the back end of last year, but he's who we've gone with. Another one that's been used there was Joe Tamani. We think he's got a good chance at taking that 6 jersey with the Vilive Miramira at the number 7. He had most caps there for them in the 7 jersey, and really is quite a talented open side flanker, I believe. The White Shark, Meli Deranalangi, is going to be their number 8 from our opinion. We've got Frank Lamani.
He's the captain of the
squad. The new captain.
Yeah, but he played
playing every minute of every game.
He played a lot of 6.
He played a lot of 6 last year as well, and they had Thuriki and Deveta play far more number 8 than him last year. So, but we've picked him at number 8, and I think that's probably the right decision. Frank Lamani at number 9 and Tetitela at number 10.
Yeah, and now I get to talk about all the most exciting players.
Okay, all right.
It's true. It is true.
Yeah. Here we go. In center, Calavetti Ravovo and Apasolami Vota, who were, I think, probably the 2 best centers from attacking stats last year. Then you've got the boss man, Vinaya Humbossi, who is 4 kilos of lean muscle heavier. And I can only imagine another 12 months on from his hip recovering, he's going to be even faster this year. So I did tease in the Pick and Drive podcast. My expectation is he's going to get the ball from fly half, burn the far winger, and score from about 80 meters out this year.
He's had the turbos installed. The turbos tuned up.
That's right. Yeah. And then you got Celestino Ravaramata, who we think is probably the most likely to get a start on the wing. But again, it's another close position. And then Kidioni Talinga, who we were very excited about to start the season last year, probably established himself pretty well at 15 by the end of the season. But again, another tightly contested position.
And if you've forgotten, just Google his name. And one of the best clips from preseason last year was the absolutely electric steps that he put on in preseason. Just left people questioning whether they should continue playing rugby, frankly. You know what I mean? Like that kind of steps. So anyway, the bench, moving on, we've got Tavita Ikanavieri, who kind of, they share a lot of time, him and Dolicoto, but we think he's most likely, I think he got injured, so kind of played a little bit less, with Togiatama playing a bit more towards the end of the season. But we think he's most likely. Then we've got Kaliopasi Ulia Kepa. Definitely did not nail that name, but who's the young, quite impressive prop who could be pushing for a start, but we'll see. And he played both loose and tight head last year, so he kind of swapped around a little bit. And then Mesaka Donge, who's the player has just come back into the squad, a little bit older, kind of like a replacement for Manasa Saulo. And yeah, Nels, do you want to take us through the lock and back row?
Yeah, it's a funny one, the lock and back row for us. I think we saw last year Fijian Drua have a number of matches where they had 6 forwards that covered on the bench and only 2 backs, and that's what we've gone for, just because we wanted to fit some of these names in. We have Christopher Menimbi as the out-and-out lock cover on the bench. We've got Thoriki Indeveta as a lock / number 8. He could find himself starting in a number of positions, whether it be lock, 6 or 8 for this side. And Kitioni Salawa, who, again, on the podcast Harry was touching on before, the main thing that Mick Byrne was talking about him as the breakout star potentially. Did he say, Harry, that he was going to be the one that comes to the fore?
Yeah, just the name, I guess, to keep an eye out for in 2023. They named him. He's a 21-year-old number 7, played a fair few minutes last year. He said he's just an exceptional player. So he put him and Humbossi as the 2 names to watch. So he's in good company.
Yep. Yeah, and he's probably, I'd say, the number 1 jackler, really, from last year.
Absolutely.
He really gets after it.
And then you've got Simeone Kurovolu, we've got as the reserve 9 in the 22 jersey. And we've just got one outside back with Eliasa Droa Sese in the back line as well. Obviously, all the other players can pretty much fit around anywhere. So I think that versatility allows them to try and stack their forward pack. That takes us on to our key questions, fellas. And I'm going to throw this one to Carnegie. How do they make up for the loss of Nemani Nangusa's leadership?
Look, he was certainly I guess a real pillar of their team, a very respected player who, certainly achieved a lot, played 7s, done everything. So it will be hard to replace him, but he did spend, was it a good 4 weeks or 5 weeks suspended for that red card out last season? So they did have to make on, and in that time, the White Shark, Meli Deranalangi, did step up and was captain. So he has had kind of a test run, and while certainly sorry. Oh, actually, just heard myself echoing then. I don't know why, but so I think he will be able to fill the shoes, put it that way. But it certainly is a loss. So I think Deranalangi is a similar type of player, a talismanic player, and he'll be a great pick because he'll be playing all the time, every minute, I think Harry was saying. So that's my take on it.
The one other thing I would say is last year, Nangusa had this massive challenge of having to lead a bunch of players that don't play professional rugby into Super Rugby. Like the weight on his shoulders last year was just absolutely massive. It's obviously a little bit of a lighter load this year for the White Shark, with these team really being very similar to what played through the season last year. So I expect that you might see a few more leaders start to come in and around Deranalangi. And I think having players like Frank Lamani and Teddy Teller around steering the ship, and with their leadership, I think there's probably a good experienced core there now.
And actually, just one more thing on that was, I do want to give Nangusa his credit. There was certainly a couple of games there where he did just put the team on his shoulders. I think you remember early on, he scored 1 or 2 tries where he just took a quick tap and just burrowed through 3 or 4 people. Just we need a try and we need it now, just.
Yeah, it is to be your attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. But I agree. I think the second year of being a professional team, if you go on Twitter and online, you'll see, a lot better facilities this year, and hopefully we'll see a less disrupted year in terms of COVID and things like that. But who knows? So, the second key question we've got, really, we talked a little bit about, but it's the second row. So we think Nasila Silla kind of is a lock on one of those jerseys, and there's a few other players. So we think last year was Viliami Rarasia was kind of the other, second in line, or one of the first 2 cabs off the rank. Nels, do you want to take us through the options and kind of why we think it's Tufiang will
Tuifungalele. We think it's probably going to be him who gets the crack. He's a little bit older, has a bit of experience. He's 28 years old. Yes, he's a Fijian boy from the islands, which is a good story for him as well. But he's just the player, I think, that filled that role really well for them throughout most of last year. Through parts of last year, sorry. Chris Menimbi is quite young. He's a 22-year-old. He's still a relatively big body, 195 centimeters, 111 kilos. And now he's got a Fijian cap, I think 1 cap or so a couple of years ago. But he never really sort of managed to break himself in as a starter. He did get a few matches off the bench. And we also have Ratu Asilia. Watusuilia.
Yeah.
He got a couple runs at the back end of last year. Sorry, I butchered that name. I thought I was Kagi there for a minute. And he's a big boy. He come through the Fijian under-20s in 2016, came across to Shoot Shield and played for Sydney Uni in their Colts through into grade. He had a game for grade, first grade as well. And he's another player coming through that is quite a talented player, 24 years old, but he just doesn't have that experience of someone like Tuafangalele.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's probably one of their biggest issues this year is going to be their depth at lock. I think it's going to be a big year for Nasila when he's going to have to really lead the line out for the entire year and work with the range of quality hookers that they have. I'm not sure they're going to get even a consistent thrower in for the bulk of the year. So going to be very interesting to see how they work together there and build combination.
I think only 3 times last year did they have the same lock partnership 2 weeks in a row, which is wild. So there was a lot of rotation through there last year. So they sort of need to pick and stick and see if they can build some of that combination.
Yep, fair enough. Harry, so change of venue. This is a big change in 2023. Some games in Fiji. How good?
All their home games in Fiji, I believe. So they've got a high performance kind of center there. Apparently, Mick Byrne saying they're still trying to get a training field that they can just run out to, but they've got an indoor training field for when it's wet, or space for when it's wet. And they obviously have a home ground. So they were on the road all of last year. I think we forget they got booted out of the north part of New South Wales when the area flooded very badly. They were just absolutely up against every kind of challenge you can have in the first year of Super Rugby. So, you know, we saw their last game against New Zealand, against the Chiefs, in Fiji, and how they were down by, I think, 3 tries, scored 3 tries within 6 minutes, and then ended up only losing the game to the Chiefs in the final game of the season by 1 point. And it was that difference of playing in front of their home crowd and how much it means to them that they just didn't give up late in the game. They found that extra gas, they found that extra fitness, and you could just see what it meant to them. And I think it's going to be an absolute game changer for them. And the interesting thing for me is going to be, you know, they won, I think, 2 games last year, one against the Rebels and one against the Moana Pacifica. How many games do you think these guys are actually going to win this year? How far can they go?
Look, I mean, they were very unlucky to lose maybe 3 or 4 other games throughout last year in their first year, and that's with a very low fitness base, very low cohesion. This year, as the year develops, I mean, they're going to be challenges from the beginning against a lot of these sides, but as this side develops and those combinations develop further throughout the year, they're going to be a serious threat to most teams in this competition in terms of they can get a win, especially at home. So I think they should be pushing for a final spot, and there's a likelihood that they could scrape into it as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them beating a few of the, you know, lower Aussie sides, and maybe sort of scraping their way towards a final spot, but it's still a big ask.
Yep, fair. And look, I think we had a listener question here from devout listener Mitch Rev Evans, but I think we've kind of covered it. It was, you know, the Drua had to shuffle their pack quite a lot in the first year just to get everyone minutes. How settled do you think they'll be this year, and which players do you think should be in their starting pack? So I think we've taken you through and said who we think should be in the starting pack and which players you know, are the ones more up in contention, and exactly what Nelson just said, specifically with locks and things, in that it would be good to get more consistency in that lineup because that can only help them.
I love it. I think Mick Byrne did come out and say they felt the need to give everyone an opportunity in the squad last year to see what everyone was made of. And this year they're going to try and rotate a bit less and really name their best 23 as often as possible. And he did allude to the fact that there was going to be some guys in the squad that might not be seeing much game time this year. So I think you'll probably see less rotation than last year. But at the same time, the 3 of us sat down and tried to work out who was the favourites from their performances last year. And we just had nobody idea half the time. Like we think we've come up with the most likely solution, but man, it could be a completely different side, and it wouldn't really surprise us as well, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
For sure. All we know is that Darren Alangi as captain and Hambossi are locked in. We can tell you that much. Okay?
No, I think the back one. I think the back one is actually settled. I reckon we're very close there. I think the only one that might come in is Iliasto Drua, but I think otherwise that back line you could pretty much write it down. But in the pack, I think you got Nasila is probably number 4, and I reckon Darren Alangi is number 8, and everything else. Good luck. Good luck.
And Dolokotto, I reckon he's their lock-in hooker.
I like your enthusiasm.
He's a brave man. Nelson. All right. Well, let's get on to, I'm going to quickly run us through. Stocks are rising. Obviously, we talked about Darren Alangi. He's captain. He's going to play every minute. So huge stocks are rising for him. He's often been touted as having quite a good offload, but the other man, Joseva Tamani, who we were talking about, youngster, as far as I'm concerned, he's the offload king of that team. If you remember, towards the end of the season last year, mate, he was throwing some wild offloads, and they were absolutely awesome. And he had an absolutely awesome season for Newcastle in the Shoot Shield last year.
2 years ago. 2 years ago now for that one.
Was that one? No.
Yeah, so he played for Newcastle 2 years ago in the Shoot Shield, but before being picked for the Drua, and he was just like we talked about it last year. He was just so far and away their best player. He was scoring a couple of tries and setting up another 2 or 3 every single week, and he's just outrageous. And you started to see that form come through absolutely in Super Rugby. The more he felt at home and comfortable, and if he gets some consistent game time, he's just that damaging ball runner. That he's fast, he's strong, he offloads like every Fijian player, I guess. But he's just an exceptional talent.
And I think he scored one of those tries where he did run like 70 meters or something in Super Rugby last year. So, he's got pace as well to burn. All right, stocks are falling. Nels, we've got down Mira.
Yeah, look, it's a tricky one because we've named him as our starter in their best side, but it's because of Salawa. If he gets his chance and really takes it, I mean, he could find himself in that starting 7 jersey. And Mira, he did share it a little bit last year, but was definitely their favourite. But Salawa had a few starts. Nasove, who's gone, had a few starts, and with an injury, Dolokotto even found himself in there. So, look, Mira is our favourite for the role, but I don't think he's going to have it, throughout the entire year, and Salawa could step up and take it off him.
I wouldn't mind seeing Mira get a run at 6 if they do start Salawa as well. I thought he was an exceptional talent. I remember him being so big and lanky, and his ability just to get his arms free was exceptional. And again, just a big turn of pace for a bloke that was such a big unit.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's big boy, 193 centimeters, not a bad size for an open side flanker.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Harry, do you want to take us through the Smokies?
Yes, I had Iosefo Masi, who is the Fijian Sevens player. We don't know when his role with them is going to wrap up, but he can play centre or outside centre. The big thing for me was I just don't think that they've got a lot of depth at centre. So if one of those other two, who are clearly their first choice, Ravovo and Vota, go down, then he could be up for some big minutes, and he's a weapon. He's very, very very quick. And then I also had Te Ahiwaru, Thoriki, and Deveta. I think there's a hole there in that 6 jersey. We've ended up saying we think Tamani's probably the most likely to get that jersey, but Thoriki and Deveta can play 8, he can play 6, he can play 5. He's so versatile that I think you'll see him in the 23 a lot more this year, and he may well be starting. And he's I do remember watching his highlights from the Mitre 10 Cup, or I think it was at the time the Bunnings NPC, and then just another wrecking ball. Absolutely.
He got 6 starts at number 8. He had 2 starts in the lock. He's had 8 starts last year. He's just got to find his position, I think.
Well, I was going to say it also depends on what type of off season he's had, because mate, he was about the size of an entire forward pack last season, which I think is what held him back a little bit, to be honest. So
I agree.
If you watch some of his highlights from the NPC and things like that, he's in a lot better shape. So if he comes in roaring and ready to go off a good off season, he could well be one to watch and really lock down a jersey. But he's a big boy. He's a massive wrecking ball, so it should be good. Well, I think that will do us for the Drua. Any other last thoughts, or can we push on to the Queensland Reds?
I just haven't raved about the White Shark enough, and we did it last year. We've got to do it again. White Shark's the man. He's going to score 1 million points. And
it's one hell of a nickname, isn't it? I mean, just try and beat that, really,
If he doesn't do the fin every time he scores, then I'm not watching.
Exactly. How do you? That's normally the Tasman Marco, the fin. How do you do like a bigger fin, like the 2-handed fin or something? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I'm the White Shark.
It's just Or do the double hand.
How good.